Yes, guys. Hello and welcome back to the Spurs-Related YouTube channel. I hope everyone is doing very well. It is boiling hot. You guys know my tactic. If I need to wipe my brow with the sweat, I use the slides because it's 30 degrees here and everything's hotting up. Do you know what else is hotting up? The Tottenham Hotspur transfer news is hotting up. Adam Wharton links. Bissouma, is he going to Turkey? We'll update you on that one. Morgan Gibbs-White. What's going on with that? Has things slowed down? Is it capitulating? What is going on? We'll update you on that one, as well as all the latest links. Before we get into things and before we talk to our own Thomas Frank AI version, Frank Thomas, I've got to say, guys, thank you so much for all the support overnight. I mean, literally, we had 500 people watching us live yesterday. It blew my mind. I am looking forward to seeing so many new faces and old faces in today's live stream. So thank you so much for that. Keep hitting that like button. Smash the like button. It's free. Smash the subscribe button. It's free. And turn the post noties on. Ring, ring, as I like to call it. You never miss a video. You never miss a live stream. But thank you again so much. And Frank Thomas. Frank, how you doing, mate?
I'm all good. As you say, the support over the last sort of 24 hours has been insane. So I'm excited to do it again and talk about a player that in Wharton that I think I said about quite early on in one of my first ones that I'd love at Tottenham. So I'm excited to talk about him and in front of hopefully a lot of people again.
100%, guys. 100%, Frank. And guys, lots of news to get updated on. Some concrete, some tier one, some more in the nose ITKs as people like to call it. But hopefully everyone's doing well. Perhaps you're going to go and watch the Wimbledon final in an hour, but there's plenty of time to talk Tottenham. Callum's in here. Welcoming in Callum. Aaron's in here. Big up yourself. And Jason is in here from Facebook. He says, how close to Spurs do you think Gibbs-White is now? Are Spurs doing any other business at the time? Be great for Spurs to continue with those awesome signings, and worried they will leave it too late. Well, I think times are changing at Tottenham. I say it every year, but I really do concrete believe that, because there is reliable sources saying that there's investment coming in. I'm sure we've got an announcement coming perhaps in the next few weeks, but also maybe they'll leave it under wraps for the fact that if suddenly clubs that we're trying to buy off know that we've got a lot of money, have a cash injection of over 200 to 300 million pounds, suddenly those asking prices rise. Suddenly an Adam Wharton isn't 60, 70 million, he's 90 to 100 million. And then do we pay that? It's not just the English tax. It's not just the homegrown tax. It's not just the Premier League tax. It's the fact that we've got money and clubs can charge us. Clubs can charge us. But good question, Jason. We'll get into all things related to Gibbs-White. We'll get into all things related to Adam Wharton. We'll get into all things tactics. You guys love the tactical analysis that Frank and I brought you yesterday. I think Frank's a much better tactical analysis than me and an analyst than me. He's doing his coaching badges. But Chris King's in here. He's saying Paulinho should be the 6 we get. We're going to talk all things 6 as well. And guys, if you're watching on repeat, I do put timestamps in below into the YouTube description. I go through the whole video and make sure if you guys want to stick to a particular topic or skip there, we'll get you there. So make sure you check out the timestamps and keep supporting, keep smashing like, keep smashing subscribe. There's already 100 in here. Crazy numbers. But Frank, let's get into things. Let's talk all things Tottenham. Let's start with Adam Wharton, because there is updates from ITKs. There is updates from tier 2, 3 sources, but has to be said, not much from Fabrizio Romano so far. Not much from Alistair Gold. Alistair Gold has mentioned that Wharton is someone that Tottenham are interested in, but not much in terms of, like, obviously bids, not much in terms of, you know, personal terms. And although this video is called Huge Wharton Updates, there is a lot more talk around there. There is a lot more, you know, there's definite interest, 100%. Frank, I'm going to tag you in. What's the latest on what you've digested from sort of Spurs Twitter and other sources?
First of all, just quickly, we've made a slight mistake between us. The tweet is about Gibbs-White. That one there's about Gibbs-White. So I'll kind of quickly mention the Gibbs. We can go to either one, but basically, Himothy on Twitter is probably the way I see it, and I follow all these in the nose because I like any small snippet of news that excites me and makes me dream. Is probably one of the more reliable ones. He's one that doesn't tend to speak until something's really going on, or there is like a genuine thing, because he's built up quite a good reputation over time. And he said last night, quite late last night, sort of midnight, 1 o'clock, that sort of time, that Spurs want Adam Wharton, and that Spurs are now testing the waters with Adam Wharton. That they've kind of spoken
testing
to
the
Palace.
Whartons.
Very good, very good. That they've spoken to Palace, and Palace apparently, kind of in his words, want upwards of high £90 million. So 90 to 100 million pounds for Wharton this summer, which is a lot of money. And I think I said to you earlier on that says to me one or two things is going on. Either Spurs have been sold, and because there's no way, if Spurs went into a conversation and heard there's a player for £90 million, Daniel Levy and Tottenham don't historically go, oh, we're going to stay in this conversation. So either Spurs have been sold, or there's some form of investment, and this is the one they're going to go for as a big sort of marquee signing to get the fans on side early. Or on the flip side, there's a release clause that, again, this secret release clause that we don't know about, that they know through the grapevine, wherever, or they've spoken to Palace and they know that, yeah, maybe there's a release clause in a month's time that's 75, or maybe Spurs are going to sit there and go, they'll test the waters with 60, they'll start and maybe try and meet in the middle at 75, 80, that sort of range. So I think it's one that Tottenham probably like. I imagine it'll be too difficult to get done this summer, especially if Eze and possibly Guéhi might go as well. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. It looks like they're going to lose Guéhi potentially to Liverpool or Newcastle, although that's gone a bit quiet recently. And Eze, again, also gone quiet, hasn't it? So it's interesting from Palace's point of view. Obviously, there's the whole thing about the Europa League and how, they've not got Europa League now, which it could play a part from some of these players leaving, right, Frank? If they've not got Europa League football, which is a big sticking point for a club, suddenly that changes things as well. Steampunk Cowboy, great name by the way. Any updates on Gibbs? We'll get into the Morgan Gibbs-White updates in about 5-10 minutes. We're just going to do the Wharton updates. Then we're going to go into a couple more bits, including some tactics, how Wharton would fit in if he joined Tottenham. But guys, little question, little engagement point. You guys know I love to get the comments into the chat. While you're going down to the chat, hit like. There's 150 of you in here now. But the engagement question is, do you think Spurs will sign Wharton? Because as Frank's just said, it's probably more likely next season, potentially not going to be, viable this summer. But I guess there's two questions. Would you want Wharton? Do you think we need Wharton? And secondly, do you think we can get him this summer? Let me know in the comments below. But Frank, back over to you in terms of the next piece on this, if you like. Little bit of Spurs Twitter as well here. George Bannister seems to know a few thing or two about Tottenham and what's going on inside. What's the latest with this one?
I think this is basically just the same as the Himothy tweet, that it's just solidifying the idea that Spurs are asking for Adam Wharton. It's kind of less. Sorry, the comments are making me laugh. It's less kind of just noise, and maybe there is actually some substance to it. Whether or not I believe that or not, I don't know. As I say, I find that all these in the nose and try and cling on to any small bit of a dream possible, because Wharton's one that would really excite me, and I'd love at Tottenham. So I imagine that Spurs are asking around and seeing kind of what the conditions are if they're going to do a deal. But having said that, as I say, that would mean one of two things: that either they think they can get him cheaper than what Palace are suggesting, because Spurs don't do deals for 90, 100 million pounds. They don't. They never have. And I don't see a world under Daniel Levy where they ever will. So that would, as I say, either suggest that there is some form of new investment or ownership, and that if he's the one they want, they're going to go, we're going to get the fans on side, we're going to give you what you want, and we're going to do it now. So it kind of goes both ways. There's two different sort of possible reasons for this. But I think it'll be something that we will hopefully hear more noise on soon. But it also could be something that does drag a while, I think, just because Palace don't need to sell him. They're in Europe. I know it's not the form of Europe they would have wanted, but they are in Europe. They're financially stable enough that I don't think Palace will be desperate to get rid of him.
No, I mean, arguably one of Palace's top 2 or 3 players. Certainly in last season, he was absolutely incredible. I don't know how much you guys saw of Adam Wharton, but he really does seem like he's England's midfielder for some time. Still very young. Couple comments. Nearly 200 of you in the house. Make sure when you're coming in, you're smashing the like button, you're smashing the subscribe button. We love it. We love to see it. And smash those post noties on. Give me a little ring in the chat. Ding, ding. Love it. Poll. Callum Roche wants a poll. I can get polls going as well. We like to do polls. Good idea. Good idea, actually. Hit like button. Look at Jonathan Mills. Hello to Jonathan. Hello to Scott. Hello to Donna Cullen. Love to see it. With the Wagwan, language as well. Like to keep things light-hearted as well. It's not all serious here. Wharton is too expensive, says Aaron Comer. Possibly. But, I mean, at the end of the day, if we've got investment and we want to be a serious club, you've got to spend the money, haven't you? You've got to spend the money, Frank.
Yeah, you have. And if you want to compete at the real... if you want to compete at the real top level, and too often I think the problem with Tottenham has been they don't actually know what they are. It's a real sort of deeper issue in Tottenham and the ownership, and they want to be this top 6 club that can compete, but they do it by acting like a mid-table club way too often. With the wages are quite low and all this. I mean, as I say, that probably requires a 3-hour stream on its own, just this whole conversation. But they've kind of gone. They seem like they're pushing, and maybe that be because of new investment. That might be because they've won something now. It might be because of the Champions League. It might be a mix of all 3. But it seems like they're moving towards acting a bit like a big club, where they've always seemed to have acted quite slowly, and where we've wanted to act like a Brentford or a Brighton as well in like this scouting and all this. But you've got to be proactive to sign in players when you do this. And too often Tottenham are reactive to things. They're slow with things. And they act in general like quite a small club in terms of a Premier League club, but they sit there and go, we want to compete and win things and win the title and win the Champions League and win cups, and that doesn't happen. It's rare. I mean, Palace maybe have broken that mold a little bit this year, but that doesn't happen really. That's not something that happens. That small clubs don't tend to win things. That give or take the top 6. Plus Newcastle, who have now come into some money, have won things for the last however many years. Leicester were incredible and broke that mould for a little while, especially getting into Europe and doing things like that, winning the FA Cup. But it's so rare. And so Tottenham have been in this situation where they've had Kane, they've had Son, they've got Romero, or they've got Son, sorry, still. And they've had top coaches, they've had this, they've had that. But they've still acted like a small club at times. And that's the frustration. So you've got to spend money to be serious. And as we said the other day, the ethics of Saudi Arabia and Qatari money and all this in football is, I mean, you can talk about that for ages, and it's something that is a lot of it is awful. But from a football standpoint, you have to spend money to compete.
Exactly. Sorry, I was just going to say, Frank, let's be honest, like all the top clubs that have money, their money's coming from somewhere that's not very ethical anyway. So if you want to bring in like sort of the ethical side of things, yes, as you just said, those regions potentially more so. But you even go back to like Roman Abramovich, right? And then he got sanctioned, and all things sort of happened to do with that. And I don't want to make this a politics show, I really don't. But wherever there's money, there's sometimes trouble, right? It's not normally good money. It's not normally clean money. And at the end of the day, sometimes as a football fan, especially in 2025, you have to throw out that window and say, look, actually, we need money. We need to invest. We need to be able to keep up with the other clubs. Look how much Chelsea is spending. Look how much Man City is spending. And look how much Arsenal are even spending. Well, it looks like they're bottling it a little bit, which is lovely to see, with the Gyökeres. Some interesting comments in the chat, guys. I'm sometimes speechless when I read them. I've started a few messages. So the top messages I will be bringing up because I can't keep up with absolutely every single one of them. And guys, we are going to be bringing super chats to the channel soon. So if you do want to get in your question that causes a massive talking point, that will be coming soon as well. But the one I wanted to bring up was about Locatelli. Just very quickly, I don't want to make this about Locatelli because this is transfer updates. This is, concrete news. Frank, do you like Locatelli? Do you think Ruger has got a point here? Because he's put it in a couple of times, and I think it is a good point.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be totally honest. The Italian football is probably one I watch less than most other sort of European leagues, so I'm not massively knowledgeable. That obviously it's a while ago, and kind of in that Chiesa bracket a little bit. He was brilliant in the Euros in 2021, and then he was I think he was at Sassuolo at the time, and he was like a real sort of hyped up talent. And then he went to Juve, and I don't think he's been as fantastic as probably what he was made out to be. But having said that, I mean, there's some Paratici. I think it was another thing that Timothy said last night. That Paratici is back. That that's done. And so if he is back, it would be the sort of one that I could see Tottenham doing, because they'll see. I'm sure he'll have his dodgy connection somewhere and ultimately it will be a deal that I imagine will be relatively cheap, because he's been one that's not been fantastic for them. And the last players, obviously, when I look through the ones we got from Juve, and we got Kudus when he wasn't doing that well, Bentancur when he wasn't doing that well, and Romero when he was not really wanted at Juve. So I would kind of trust that idea. He's experienced, certainly. He's obviously played for Italy a lot of times. So I mean, if they can get a decent deal on him, then I wouldn't be against it.
Sure, no, good point. The other comment I wanted to bring up was from Mike Snee. Big up, Mike. Saying, would love it if we get Eze. Doubtful now, I guess. I'm gonna take this one quickly, Frank. I think things have clearly calmed down with Eze. We were linked with him quite heavily. Arsenal were linked with him quite heavily. It looked like Arsenal were going to get him. That seems to have calmed down a bit, as well as Gyökeres going to Arsenal. That's all kind of gone a bit quiet as well. They've got Madueke. Their fans are then going nuts about that. I've seen people graffitiing outside the Arsenal stadium in protest. So it's not just West Ham fans losing their head, it's Arsenal fans. So hopefully, long may it continue. And Kantab said, does Wharton have a release clause, Frank? He didn't actually say know. Frank. I just threw it to you.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I imagine Spurs will go about it the illegal way and go and ask someone that isn't Crystal Palace. But yeah, no, I don't know.
And we've got Shirley the tea lady in here saying, all right, folks, settle down and grab your cuppa, because little old Shirley is here to spill some transfer tea, literally and figuratively. Thank you, Shirley. Always appreciate your comments. It's always an interesting time here on SpursRelated at the moment. 200 of you in the house. Thank you so much for your support, guys. We're going to bring you some more news now. Please keep smashing the like, smashing the subscribe, and turning the noti bells on. Ding, 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 ring, ring, as we love to call it. What's next, Frank? Well, more Adam Wharton stuff. And this is more to do with the fact that yesterday, Palace announced a new kit, and there was a feature, I believe it was on one of the Palace channels, and it said, when Thomas said, looking forward to seeing you rocking this shirt this season, Wharton replied, hopefully, in a fairly non-committal remark in the eyes of Spurs fans. The Spurs fans are reading into that. Obviously, he's saying, hopefully, see you in a Palace shirt next season. Are we looking into this one a bit too much? Have someone said it's crazy to hear Palace say such a thing at the launch of the new kit? What do you think, Frank?
I mean, I think it's a little bit weird. I'm not gonna, but then I also look at it and go, he's a young kid. He's 20. He's 21. He's possibly not the most comfortable and/or trained in the media, so maybe he just kind of said the wrong thing. I mean, I think during any transfer window, every club loves to read into. I mean, put it this way, it's a strange comment. I do think it's a bizarre thing to say, because if you weren't leaving, you would just say, yeah, So hopefully he suggests that there is doubt in his mind some way. So whether that's us, whether I imagine he'll end up at Chelsea or Liverpool or someone. But yeah, I mean, it's a bit bizarre, but I'm not reading too much into it just yet.
Just like Jonathan Mills has just summarised there, I wouldn't read anything into this comment. Perhaps, he's just being a bit blasé about it. I think, Spurs fans will grab onto anything they can to try and make this seem more realistic than maybe it actually is. Sam saying, if Newcastle can't spend, then how's Brentford going to be able to spend? So one more bit about Adam Wharton. Frank, I'll let you take this one. Thomas Frank is saying, Frank Thomas is explaining Thomas Frank. Nice to confuse people. And by the way, that comment does crack me up. That is actually Frank's name. So you've got to bring it out because I get it every single video when I'm replying to all your comments. People are saying, surely he's not actually called Frank Thomas. No, he is. He is. Like we're not gonna get his ID on the screen and stuff like that. But it is his name. Frank. So Thomas Frank has told Levy to sign Adam Wharton for Tottenham, according to TBR Football. So not tier one, not a tier one source. If you guys follow us from Instagram, you know that we normally only post the top concrete news. We don't want to post anything that's not true. But here we like to talk about, rumours and a bit more paper talk. Frank, anything to sort of go over on this one?
I'm not sure. I massively read much into this either. I think I'd tell Daniel Levy to sign Adam Wharton. I don't think it's massively, a sign that it's going to happen. I'm sure they've had multiple conversations. I'm sure they've had, about different players. I'm sure they've got lists of hundreds. And so, yeah, I wouldn't read much into this for now. I think Wharton's brilliant. I think he would make us better. I did a little bit of homework last night and watching some bits of him and stuff, because as much as he's been in the Premier League for a year and a half now, I want to say, I feel like I still haven't seen enough of him. And so I was watching bits, and I think he's one that would just slot in perfectly with the way Thomas Frank wants to play. Some of his the ability to see a pass so quickly and things is it was second to none. It's unbelievable. But having said that, Thomas Frank has probably had conversations about multiple players, so I wouldn't read massively into this yet. If David Ornstein all of a sudden drops something about him, then I'll start getting excited. But for now, I'm not trusting this idea too much, because as I say, I think they've probably spoken about a lot of players. I'm sure he's got 10 players that he wants him to sign for Tottenham. So I don't think it's a sign that it's definitely going to happen.
Do you think, Frank, that obviously, like you said, you've done some more digging today. He's not been around for ages, Adam Wharton, but do you think he is someone Tottenham need, or are you still going for your Angelo Stiller comment? Your Angelo Stiller link. Would you say Wharton is at the top of the list, or do you think it should be someone else?
I think Wharton's the number one, but Wharton's also like the real luxury one in terms of, as I say, it's going to cost you probably near enough £90 million. Yeah. Spurs might be able to get a deal a little bit cheaper or whatever, but he's going to cost you £90 million, £100 million, which is a lot of money, a real lot of money. And I get why people would be against that idea. But I do think he's someone that makes Tottenham better. I think, as I say, he's a proper six. He's gritty. He wins tackles. He's a bit of a machine. But he's also got the sort of, and I'm not comparing to, but like in Kevin De Bruyne, that he gets it, and within a second of having the ball, he's played it, and it's a good ball, and he found someone. Quite often I was watching floated balls that he puts over the top and through, and just first time, just being able to see someone can constantly checking his shoulder, and that sort of like almost like a Scholes sort of comparison, that he can win tackles and be that sort of gritty player, but also sees things so quickly.
Insane.
It's a lot of money, but as I said yesterday, so often I've seen players go to, we wanted a player and we've gone, that's a lot of money, and he's gone to Liverpool, or he's gone to Arsenal, he's gone to Chelsea or whoever, and we've all gone, I wish we'd signed him now. And so I think if Spurs have the money and Spurs are willing to do that, I think he's the one. Yeah, no,
I think I agree. And I think also what's interesting is we were linked with Wharton, if you remember, while he was still in the Championship. He had quite strong links then. That was about 2 or 3 seasons ago. And so it's almost like, it's the same story, isn't it? Like Spurs a year or two ago were linked with Jack Grealish, but we were linked with Jack Grealish when he was at Villa. It seems to be we always are a bit behind on signing these players that may fit into our system, but it's 2 or 3 years too late. And that's what I'm hoping the investment's going to do. It's like, if we identify Wharton as a player that's really going to blossom, he's going to be a big thing in 5-6 years when he's 27, 28. He's going to be even at new heights, right? I want to be sitting here and saying we've invested early. We've gone before the curve. Because I feel like we're way after the curve already on Wharton, and he's still so young. It's like we should have signed him 2 or 3 years ago if that's what we wanted. But guys, I've just put a poll in the chat, in the YouTube chat, if you're watching on YouTube, and it says, is Wharton your first choice number 6 pick? So far, I've had 30 votes, 67% saying yes, 33% saying no. If you said no, let us know in the comments below who your number 6 central defensive midfield choice is. Put it in the comments below. I'd love to read them out. But we're going to move off of Adam Wharton for a minute. Palace don't face low blocks, says Sam. Can we also have Thomas Muller? Also, just a cherry on top. Thomas Muller, interesting one. Let's not get into other links just yet, because the next piece is around Yves Bissouma. And there was a lot of links, wasn't there, Frank, that he was linked to Fenerbahce in Turkey, linking up with Jose Mourinho. A lot of links to Turkey, a lot of different teams, lots of different players going that way. We've even seen like John Duran, who'd only just gone to Saudi, sort of linked there, and it's an interesting one where they've suddenly got all this money from the Turkey team, but no active talks, according to Fabrizio Romano, between Fenerbahce and Spurs for Bissouma so far, as Fener are focused on different targets. Like I said, they've linked with about 70 players a day. I'm not even joking. So Frank, just quickly on this Yves Bissouma news, because at the end of the day, Spurs need to get rid of some players to bring some in, right? So do you think that we could see Bissouma go to Fenerbahce? I mean, this news obviously suggests no active talks, but do you think another club may come in for Bissouma? And do you think we'll see Bissouma leave this summer?
Yeah, I do. Just quickly, I want to point out how brilliant that photo is, by the way, on that tweet. It's the limited edition scarf around his head. I don't know where he picked that from. He's obviously taken it from a fan. The sunglasses, it's just probably my favourite photo from that evening, actually.
Oh, really?
It's certainly up there. I love it. On him, he's too good of a player for someone not to want him, I think. Maybe he's not too good of a player to suit what we're trying to do now and to suit going up to the next level and competing at the top of the Premier League. But he could certainly do a job for a mid-table Premier League side and be good, or a Premier League side in that sort of 17th to 10th sort of range. Obviously not us, but
we're 17th, mate. Careful what you say.
Well, yeah, I've got to be careful. But if you want to really progress, maybe I'm not sure he's the one, but certainly for Everton or someone like that, I think he'd suit well. And so there's clubs in the Premier League, but then again, I'm sure there's clubs in Italy. I'm sure there'll be enough demand for Bissouma around. I guess it's just whether or not Tottenham get the money they want for him.
I don't think we can be picky on that, though. I don't think we can be picky on the money. Don't forget, 1 year left on his deal. Yeah, teams are going to know that he's on a free next season if he doesn't leave. And there's going to be clubs lining up to talk to him. He's not a bad player. He's just got slight attitude problems, slight problems off the pitch. But on his day, he's a fantastic player. You know how good he was for Brighton. He was talked in the same sort of caliber as this man was. I've already lost the comment. It's about Baleba. Oh, here it is. What about Baleba? More of a ball winner. We'll talk about potential other sixes for Wharton in a minute. But Henry's saying he's better than Sarr and Gray. What do you think of that?
I think that's wrong. I think Bissouma's a good player, as I say. I think he worked for certain clubs. Gray, I think, is an unbelievable talent. Some of the comments, everyone's forgetting Gray. Why did Frank want to Archie Gray at Brentford? That's the thing. That I was thinking this last night. If we do go and splash out on Wharton, and don't be wrong, I've said you need a squad, you need a number of players. But I think we are forgetting a little bit that Thomas Frank is going to probably love Archie Gray. Brentford don't tend to spend £50 million on players, and they had near enough agreed last summer to sign him from Leeds. So and he was obviously up for that, Thomas Frank. So I would be staggered if he doesn't love him. And so maybe he'll look at it and go, yeah, the opportunity cost in that, I do agree. I think Wharton's superb. It's a lot of money. And so, listen, if Thomas Frank likes him and wants him and thinks that's a good move, then do it. But I think he's going to really like Gray as well. On to Bissouma, though, I think Bissouma, as I say, Bissouma's too good of a player to not be wanted, out there. I guess maybe it depends on if investment comes in as well from Saudi Arabia. As we see, I think Sam mentioned it on the live the other day that, Chelsea do it, that all of a sudden they're selling Koulibaly and he's gone to Saudi Arabia, and they're selling Edouard Mendy and they're selling, whoever else has gone to Saudi Arabia. All these clubs do it and we don't. That maybe having Saudi investment, if it is going to be Saudi investment, that all of a sudden Al Nassr are taking him for £35 million, and that's 35 coming in. Whether he's worth that or not is a different argument. But that's how sadly crooked football is nowadays, and corrupt football is nowadays. But if you want to beat the best, you kind of got to join them. So I think Bissouma will be one that there will be. It might drag on a bit, but there will be enough demand, and I think they will probably get rid of him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Bissouma will probably not play another game for Tottenham. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's going to be. Sold. Let's talk about. I mean, we've been going 31 minutes, Frank, and we haven't even talked about Morgan Gibbs-White and all the drama that's going on with that. So that could be another half an hour. But no, guys, we plan to go for around another 20 or so minutes. Guys, I hope you are enjoying the content. It seems like people are enjoying it. It's 256 of you in the house, and there's 59 people that have pressed the like button, which is free to do so. Let's get that quickly to 100, please, guys. That would really be amazing. And thank you so much again for those that are joining back from yesterday's video, which went absolutely nuts. 15,000 people watched my ugly face and Frank's tactical analysis yesterday, which we were blown away by, which was brilliant. So guys, please keep hitting the like button. Please keep subscribing to Spurs Related. We're on the way to 4K now after smashing 3K yesterday, plus 400 subscribers overnight. It was nuts. And keep turning on the notification bells. Keep ringing them. It's free to do so. I'm not asking you to pay a penny. So please like, subscribe, and turn the notification bell on, which is next to the subscribe button if you're on mobile. And if you're on laptop, I think it's in a similar position. But enough of the plugging. Back to talking about Morgan Gibbs-White this time. And the latest on this is that Tottenham still hope to push through with the deal for Gibbs-White. And the current feeling around the potential transfer is that Forest may only succeed in delaying the move rather than preventing it. And I've had a lot of people overnight, and I've replied to your comments saying, why are you talking about Morgan Gibbs-White? It's not happening. This is Alistair Gold, Football London, Tottenham's main footballing correspondent. And he's saying the current feeling around the potential transfer is that Forest may only succeed in delaying, there's the key word, in delaying the move rather than preventing it. And guys, I'll come onto camera and admit that I was wrong if this falls through. But it's not falling through. It's just going to be delayed. It's going to take a bit of time. Frank, from this news, obviously very positive. There was a little bit of doubt in our head yesterday that this could fall through. But I think Alistair Gold putting this out this morning kind of made us a bit more rest assured, would you say?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we said yesterday that it probably was going to be a case of this. I read again last night that basically it is done, and that Spurs have the reason it's been so quiet over the last couple of days is that Spurs have pulled away from it a little bit, not in a negative way, but just to let Forest calm down. They were worried that if they kind of went ahead with the medical and everything started, and then it would blow up a little bit. So whether or not it's true, I don't know, but I read that last night that basically the Spurs plan was this is always going to happen, but Spurs just wanted it to calm down, wanted Marinakis Forest to chill out a little bit and stop throwing his toys out the pram, and then they would get on with it. So I would be pretty surprised if, just as a hunch, that given that and given everything, that if by sort of Tuesday or Wednesday he isn't a Spurs player. Yeah,
hopefully see another absolutely lovely announcement video with all the content. I mean, what was it? A few nights ago, was it Thursday night when Kudus was announced? I mean, all the videos that went with it, all the Van de Ven and Madison banter, and even Richarlison posting on his Instagram, saying welcome Kudus, and it's him amongst the brawl that happened when Kudus got sent off at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium only a few months ago. It's good to have a bad boy in the dressing room. It's good to have attitude that's controlled, and Kudus hopefully won't be a problem. It'll be good. Romero, people don't like him from opposing teams. We love him. We absolutely love Romero. And talking of Christian Romero news, no new update, but hopefully he's sticking around. As Fabrizio Romano said a couple of days, that he's very likely to stay, and the feeling is amongst the club that he will stay. Good banter from Kudus. Hi guys, we talk football. New subscriber, thanks for joining, mate. He's saying, hi guys, how much is Bissouma worth? Is he cheaper than Wharton? Little bit injury prone. Frank, it's hard to say on the valuations, as we just said. The valuations are all a bit mixed, but would you actually? I'm going to create a question out of this. We talk football. It's a good comment. Bissouma or Wharton, Frank?
I'm still with Wharton at the moment. I really like Carlos Bissouma, and I think Bissouma looks like a really top player. My only kind of fear, and that's possibly maybe the wrong word, but so Bissouma''s been at Brighton for 2 years. 2 years now, and he looks unbelievable. I think he will be give or take a similar sort of price. And Brighton are also very good at getting big bucks out of people. In Caicedo went for 110 or whatever he went for. Cucurella was 50 odds. You can go for all these players they got rid of, and they've generated a lot of money. It's taken Caicedo a bit of time to sort of fit in at Chelsea and really click at Chelsea. He looks like a good player now. Bissouma obviously probably wasn't the greatest success. Sometimes I worry about players a little bit like that, because when they fit in at a system so well, and Brighton it's a bit like if you sign a player from Ajax or you sign a player from Barcelona, and it sounds a bit mad, but they bring them up playing this same style in this same way, and so you're ingrained into the culture of the club. And sometimes buying players from Brighton a little bit, and some of these sort of clubs, they're the most like that in the Premier League, that they buy all these young players and that they're going to be on a conveyor belt and they're going to sell them for 50 million in 3 years' time. That's why they buy them. And for every one that fails, 2 of them sell for 50 million quid each. And so Brighton, that's why they can be where they are. And so Bissouma looks like a really top player, but he looks like a really top player in that system at the moment. So I'm a little bit unsure at the moment. But that's not to say that I don't think he's superb. I think he's looked like an unbelievable talent. And if Spurs turn around and signed him tomorrow, I'd be delighted. If I had to pick one based on just what I've seen of the two, I'd just go out on Wharton. But I think they're going to be similar sort of prices, so there isn't going to be a lot in it.
So if I understand rightly, you're basically saying you think Wharton is the safer option and will fit our mould more easily, more quickly. Would you say?
I think so. Yeah. Okay. I just think the whole. I think Frank's system requires a distributor as such, and I think Wharton is that. That Wharton can literally sit there and spray passes all day long. I think Bisouma's a little bit different to that. That's not, as I say, that's not to say Bisouma's not a superb player, but I think in the system, and I think if you're going to spend that much money, I would just go out on Wharton. But as I say, if Spurs pulled up with either of them, I'd be delighted.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think I'm surprised. A lot of the chat are going Bissouma. I might have to do a poll, Bissouma or Wharton, because I think that's a really, really good one. Good polls. That's why you get your comments in the chat, guys. You cause a talking point, which is great. Final couple bits, and then we'll do a little bit about how Wharton or a number 6 will fit in, because you guys love the tactics board. Frank's going to bring that up. Just a little bit of a fun one. Mad is posting on his Instagram story earlier, spot of lunch with my big Dutch mate, and it's him and Mickey van der Ven, of course, both in their white t-shirts, looking pretty cool, looking like they're having a nice bit of lunch in the sun, because the weather has been a scorcher. But it's good to see the spirits are up, and looking forward to seeing them all back in a Spurs shirt or back at the pre-season. I mean, I'm buzzing for pre-season, Frank. I'm not normally buzzing for pre-season because it's a new project, because it's a new cycle, because it's a new manager, because we got new players and new signings that have already come in. Not lastminute.com like we used to do. We're used to getting this most of our summer transfer window business done in August, right? When the season started. Suddenly we got Kudus. We've got Morgan Gibbs-White who should be in. Got Tell that you could technically say is part of that. Takai. and hopefully a number 6, another second striker. We're doing it a bit earlier, which is crazy. It's nice to see.
I think as well, I think as well, the excitement of a new manager, and I feel like this kind of happens every time we get a new manager. There's sort of an excitement, but because they've just won something as well, there's feels like, and there's obviously the talk of investment and all this. It feels like it could be quite an exciting sort of time for Tottenham. So I think that's probably all coming together and means we'll lose at Reading next week.
Hope not. I hope not. Right. We've somehow drawn some Palace fans in here, Frank. So we're gonna have to confront this. Where is the comment? Colin Waterman. Firstly, welcome on in, mate. Thanks for joining. Thanks for putting your comment in. Look, please stop with the Adam Wharton talk. Don't know who's giving you this idea, but Wharton is not for sale, for one. And secondly, he's costing £100 million, which you won't be paying. Also, he has 4 years left on his contract. And I get your point, Colin. And at no point have I said we're signing Wharton. No point have I said it's happening. But we're talking about the possibility, and there has been links amongst the Spurs ecosystem, amongst the second and third tier journalists, amongst Spurs in the nose. I think it's a 5% chance, 10% chance of happening. I agree with you. However, we're talking about the possibility. And the other thing, Colin, you may not know is that Spurs have secured some investment, although it's not out there in the know at the moment. You know, it's pretty concrete that we've got 200 or 300 million pounds of investment coming from external sources that are contributing to our transfer funds. Hence, we spent 55 million on Kudus. Hence, we spent 60 million on Morgan Gibbs-White, which will happen and has taken a bit of a slow one. So, Colin, appreciate comment. I don't think the Wharton thing's going to happen either, mate, but it is hotting up. And potentially, you never know with this transfer window. You know how crazy it can go. Next week, we could be talking about Adam Wharton, more concrete links with tier 1 journalists. It might not happen, but it might. But we're all about talking about content here, guys. We're talking about players that will fit. We're talking about players that are linked. And there is a link there, so we've got to talk about it. And now we've got Colin as our Palace expert. There you go. You can be on the other side, Colin. Right, Frank, are you ready to do a bit of tactics for the last 10 or 15 minutes?
Let's do it.
Before Frank's put his screen up, guys, 270 people across YouTube and Facebook, 95 likes. Can we get it to 200 likes? Smash like, free to do so. Smash subscribe, free to do so. We're on the way to 4,000 subscribers. The support has been immense. I appreciate every single one of you. Even Donna Cullens, T-Boy, or whatever else has been in the comments. You know, I appreciate you all. You're all legends. So please do hit the subscribe, hit the like, and also if you're watching on repeat, comment your thoughts. I reply to all the comments, every single one, negative or positive. And turn the notification bell on. I need to get this whole ring ding ding thing. Which one is it? I don't know, but bell on those bells. Chime them on so every time we go live, you never miss a video. That's also free to do so. I'm not asking for a single penny from any of you. Just appreciate the support. And love you guys coming back every single live stream. We'll be back again. Of course, we'll be back again tomorrow. But make sure you have the noti bell on so you know when we go live. But let's talk tactics. I've just got to bring this up. Here we go. Right. So you guys seem to enjoy the... Is it Christmas? Ring. Got it. Ringing those bells. Exactly. Ring those bells like it's Christmas, guys. Like you're on Santa's sleigh. I didn't think Christmas would be mentioned in this video at all. So we got the tactics board up. You guys seem to love this. Yesterday, Frank is our sort of expert tactician here, and I want to explain how obviously we talked about Wharton and Baleba, and I need to do a little poll in the chat as well, Wharton or Baleba, because that seemed very close. But how it fits into the Tottenham system, and Frank's gonna take the mic now and explain why a Wharton and Baleba would be so needed. And Frank, you've got to also remember how do we get even a Morgan Gibbs-White in here if we then secure the 6? Where does Bergvall come in? There's all sorts of questions to come, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. So first of all, I mean, let me just set that like that quickly, right? So the idea is that Tottenham in possession, wherever, right? It first of all, having an actual 6, which is something that I think as I say, I've said a couple of times, I think we've become slightly hung up on the idea that, we all describe players as being only a 6 or being only an 8 or being 20 years ago, you were a midfielder. You could do a few. Whereas, so you want players, and we've said the whole time about versatility, and Thomas Frank will like Gibbs-White, for example, because he can do all 3. So Gibbs-White is part of, first of all, with him, is part of a squad. As I say, we're going to have 48 games next season. You need a number of players in each role. But what an actual 6 gives you, probably in this system, more than like what last year's 6 would have given you in Bentancur, who I don't think did a bad job. I just think the system was a bit insane at times and chaotic. Is it gives you stability, and it gives players like Bergvall and Maddison freedom. I said yesterday, the amount of times that Maddison was in this area here picking the ball off Van de Ven, or he was in this area here picking the ball off Romero, and he'd get it, and there's no one in this space here. Instantly, there is literally no one. And before, and you had your wingers all the way out here. That was kind of what we looked like last year at times. That Dominic Solanke was one of the only few, sometimes the only one, in and around the penalty area. So what you instantly do by bringing in a 6 is the idea of having a lighthouse, someone that sees everything, and that's why I think Wharton would suit perfectly. If Wharton sits in this area, you instantly give Bergvall freedom to move. He hasn't got to sit. Bergvall then has freedom. You've got James Maddison can occupy kind of whatever space then as well. So obviously, as we said with the inside forwards, you've got your fullbacks have got more space down the lines as well. But having that lighthouse, but you need someone that can also properly defend, like Arsenal had it with Declan Rice, and kind of more West Ham used Rice in this way. But I mean, Arsenal probably, I'm sure, could but it's that sort of idea that Declan Rice started out as a centre half. That was what he came through as, and so technically you can almost kind of sit like this, so that you've almost got a back 5 when you're going forward. That Adam Wharton hasn't got to be. Whereas last year we'd watched Spurs at times, and Bergvall, as I say, would be over here, Maddison over here, and Bentancur all the way up here, or Bissouma all the way up here, and then you got a winger up here, and it's a mess. And so the second they lost the ball, your Dodgy's inside and Porro's inside, you had these two. And as I said yesterday, that we were saved so often because Van de Ven is a freak of nature, and he's so quick and so big and so strong and can catch up with these guys, that if we didn't have Mickey Van de Ven, which for large parts of the season we didn't, it showed. We had, and that's nothing on Jagusi, that's nothing on Danso, that's nothing on Archie Gray, who was brilliant a lot there, and Ben Davies. But when we didn't have these guys, they struggled because the system was so built on having players that were quick and strong at the back that could deal with this pressure. So you instantly, by bringing in a 6, you bring in stability, you bring in cover for these two, that it's another body they have to get past. But also the reason that maybe some might argue a 6 maybe isn't as necessary is because you're not going to have the fullbacks inside constantly like you did last year. The fullbacks are more often than not going to be out wide. They're going to be occupying these areas. They might come in occasionally, but they're going to be occupying these areas. So whereas Udogie was often here at times, and we'd lose the ball and this winger would be totally free, Udogie's always going to be in and around here now. Same with Pedro Porro. And so you've still got your slight line going on with your back line, whereas before Udogie was here, Porro was somewhere in here, and it was a mess. It was chaotic, and it was a mess.
Absolutely.
And so Wharton or Baleba or Angelo Stiller or Hayden Hackney, whoever it is, or Archie Gray even, Archie Gray, Bentancur, give you that sort of stability that you can then give the freedom, as I say, to James Maddison, who and Bergvall, who can go, I'm going to, certainly when we're playing teams like, we're going to have a lot of the ball like Burnley at home on the first day, that Bergvall's going to go, I'm going to make that run. Instead of thinking, whereas Maddison has to drop deep last year, get the ball, and he's looking, there's no one to make that pass to, because Solanke always had 2, if not 3 in and around him, that he would have to literally, it would have to be a miracle for him to get the ball, take it, turn and score. And so having the inside forwards makes a large difference because you've got more space for the fullbacks, and that allows that then means other teams will have to sit off a little bit. It gives more space to James Maddison, gives more space to Lucas Bergvall or whoever else is playing in midfield, Gibbs-White, Bentancur, Sarr, Kulu, whoever. But having that 6 gives you so much more stability when you build up. And then you're also not as open and as, chaotic when you defend. So if it is going to be 90 million or 80 million, it probably will be worth it if it's who they really want to fit the system.
Sure, no, that will make sense. And it's interesting how, when you look at it like this, how important that really is and how it opens up space and how it allows other players to get forward and that cover is there, right? And what's an interesting point here is, Frank, is how would this lineup... I can't even find the comment. The comments are going nuts. It's about how will you fit in... Here it is. Where is Gibbs-White? He's a starter. How I know we're doing this for tactics purposes, but in terms of how the lineup would adapt, Frank, if when Gibbs-White comes in, who drops out of that midfield, and also if you still get your 6, you still get your Wharton or your Baleba or your Hayden Hackney, as you said, or your Angelo Stiller. Where does that then put? Where does that then put Bergvall? Or where does that then put Maddison? Who comes out? It's an interesting one. There was also people are saying where Kudus... People were saying on Instagram, I put the reel up on Instagram as well yesterday. People were saying, where have you put Kulusevski? And I'm thinking, you can't fit everyone in, can you? You just can't.
No, I mean, we've almost forgotten about Kulu as well. And there's certain players that we have forgotten about. Gray's one of them, Kulu's one, Sarr's another. That some of these guys are being forgotten about a little bit. But as I've kind of keep banging the drum, that we've got so many games next season that this is a template for he might really dislike James Maddison. I'm not saying he's going to. I think he will like James Maddison, but he might turn around and think Maddison's not actually good enough and capable of doing what I want him to do. And so all of this that we've kind of spoken about, James Maddison, could he be? It might be pointless. He might in a month's time go, James Maddison isn't doing what I need him to do. Kulusevski's the one, or Gibbs-White in the 10 is actually what I need. Or I'm going to switch it up and I'm going to play with 2 up front and not play with a 10. And so, in theory, you could play Gibbs-White where Wharton is. I think you could play him in that sort of deep lying role where we looked yesterday, his defending numbers are very good. You can play him in this role where he picks up the ball deep. And again, as I say, last year, if you could have had a midfield 3 of James Maddison's, we probably would have been a great team because he was so good at picking it up deep, but then he had no one to give it to. But then when someone would go deep and do it for him, he'd get into these areas and he could create and score goals and things. But too often there was a lack of fluidity and there wasn't the link, that he was the link almost to himself. So by bringing in a proper 6 that's just literally going to sit in the centre circle and that sort of area of the pitch, you instantly give freedom to him or Kulu or Gibbs-White. Gibbs-White will play as a 10. I've kind of forgotten that point a little bit when I've spoken that Gibbs-White has been forgotten as playing as a 10. He will play there at times. Him that and the 8 and even the 6. I mean, there's the comment there that we are building 2 squads. That's got to be, that's what. If you want to really compete, you need 2 capable squads of players, pretty much. I mean, you certainly need a bench and a first team of top players if you want to really compete at the top. Like if you want to be consistently winning things.
100%, mate. I completely agree. It's a really good point from Jonathan there, and some really intelligent points in the comments as well, guys. About we need depth. People saying, where does this player fit in? Where does that player fit in? You're not going to fit every single player into an 11. Man City, when they put Jeremy Doku on the bench, don't go, how can you leave out such a good player that's one-on-one and takes on a player and beats them and makes things happen as exciting, or a Grealish that's in form. They just don't get in the team week in, week out. Even when Kevin De Bruyne was at the top of his game, he wasn't getting in the team every single week sometimes because that's what Guardiola had the luxury of doing. We haven't had the luxury of doing that because we haven't had that squad depth. We have a decent 11, and that's probably why we won the Europa League, because we were, in a way, lucky that the players came back when they did. But if Romero didn't come back when he did, when he was injured, if Van der Ven didn't come back when he did when he was injured, we probably wouldn't have won the Europa League. And although it was an absolutely shocking Premier League season, we literally won a competition based off getting a bit lucky with our route, but also having that 11 that we could rely on, right, Frank?
Yeah, exactly. And as I say, we have a first 11 of players that is actually pretty good. And I think people probably overlook that sometimes. We have a good side at Tottenham. This isn't, I'm not hearing people tell me that Porro, Udogie, Van der Ven, Romero, Bergwijn are bad players because they finished 17th. They're not bad players. Pound for pound, that's one of the better starting 11s in the Premier League, I would argue. And that might get, not in the top maybe 3 or 4, but it's in the top 5 or 6, certainly. Pound for pound for I'm not hearing that we had a worse team than Brentford or Bournemouth or Forest last year, because I don't think we do. And so these are good players. These are good players that, as you say, came back at the right time and made an impact. But too often we've kind of not had the squad. And when we saw it last year, when we were struggling in, we went to Hoffenheim. We won 3-2. I remember looking at that bench. I think Will Lancashire was actually the most experienced player they had, and he played like 2 senior games. And it was like, you can't compete if you're going to have this. This isn't a way to, we're struggling, and you need to act. And so this is kind of where we're looking better now, because all of a sudden it's a wonderful problem to have, to go, what about Kulusevski? Or what about Archie Gray? Or what about Gibbs-White? Or what about Bentancur? Or Pape Sarr? Or Heung-min Son? I mean, I've forgotten Son. Brennan Johnson's our top goal scorer last year. We've not even mentioned him. Jed Spence was one of our better players for large parts of last season. Danso was really good when he came in. We've got the goalkeeper in Kinski now, who has shown promise since he's come in. You can look through the whole squad, and they're starting to build a squad now where they've got at least 2. I mean, Wilson Odobert, we've kind of forgotten he existed. That they've almost got a squad where Richarlison's another one that they've got 2 or 3 top players or good enough players now in each position. And if you want to really compete, you need that. I think they need to add a bit of real sort of firepower. And I think Kudus is that. I think Gibbs-White can be that. That when you're really struggling, they come up with something special. That Spurs probably haven't had that since Sonny's been on a bit of a decline and Kane left and we lost Eriksen and Dele. The ones that, like, out of literally nothing can do something special. And not enough. I didn't see James Maddison do that enough, or these guys. But we're starting to build a team now where I look at it and go, Bergwijn can do that, Tell can do that, Kudus can do that, Odobert can do that. You go through, and these guys that are skillful and exciting and make you want to watch Tottenham. And so they're building a team now, and they're starting to build a squad that is quite exciting. Don't get me wrong, we're still a bit of a way off. And as I say, Thomas Frank might look at it in training and go, James Maddison isn't good enough. I use him as an example. I'm not saying that at all. But, he might look at him and go, he's not good enough. For if I want to really win the title, or I really want to win the Champions League in the next couple of years, or I want to really cement Tottenham as one of the best teams in the world, or in the country, certainly in the world, James Maddison might not be good enough for what I want to do, or Vicario might not be good enough for what I want to do, or whoever it be. And so this whole idea that, who will fit in or who will, it's quite tough to sort of suggest now, because we're in a position where we don't really know what Thomas Frank is going to favour or who he's going to favour. It will be a lot easier of a conversation probably at the first international break in September time. Well, we know this is what he's set up with in a few different games. These are the players that he quite clearly likes and gets on with. He's yet to even have a press conference, so it's really hard to suggest anything can, would he play? As I say, I use this just because it's an easy template, but James Maddison might be nowhere near it. Bergwijn, Tell, Udogie, maybe nowhere near it. Maybe he loves Jed Spence. I don't know, as I say, it is. But a lot of these guys, this is, as I say, a template that they might not get in the real thing, as often as maybe we're suggesting they are. As I say, he tried to buy Johnson at Brentford for 45, 50 million pounds. We are literally completely forgetting he exists. And so, it's a difficult one to sort of go over now, because you don't really know who he's going to favour and what he's going to favour. But I imagine that will probably give or take be the side, but who knows?
Agreed. Absolutely agree, mate. One more thing, and then we will do final comments and start to wrap things up. In terms of, just very quickly, Frank, in terms of Morgan Gibbs-White, because a lot of people are commenting saying, how does Morgan Gibbs-White fit into this? And as we've just discussed, obviously about having a squad. If you were gonna change a couple of bits on here, for you, if you were to edit right now on this tactics board, who are you editing out? You know, who are you getting rid of, and then how is Morgan Gibbs-White fitting into this?
Well, you could argue the idea of I mean, there's a comment then that Thomas Frank probably won't use a single pivot, and that's probably true. That was more just a template to show. I imagine they would line up with something like this, but it's a template to show that the freedom it gives Bergvall. I think he would probably be in there in some games, as I say. If when you're playing Burnley at home, or you're playing whoever at home, Leeds at home, or whatever, you can get away with doing that, because when you're going to have a lot of the ball, these guys are. That, as I say, Bergvall, they all thought was going to be this pretty player that's going to come in and do skills and be really talented, but probably not really be up to pace with the Premier League this quickly. And the guy's a machine. He doesn't stop running. He works hard. He flies into tackles. He's a bit of a brute, really, and that's not what you'd expect. And Gibbs-White is quite similar. As we said yesterday, he got booked 11 times this year. He throws himself about. He gets into tackles. So you could certainly play that as a double pivot. They're good on the ball. They're comfortable. You've got to be clever. You've got to be intelligent. They would invite a press. They could play out of it. That would work. Or you could argue that this is going to be, let's just go Bentancur for now. And you can have Gibbs-White in the 10. Whether or not that's something, I think that's something they'll look at. But I think personally that Gibbs-White is being brought in with the intention of playing slightly deeper. That's just a hunch. As I say, it could be completely wrong. But Gibbs-White, as I say, is comfortable enough to play in a role where he can get on the ball, he can turn, he can create things. I mean, we looked yesterday, his key passes were like, his numbers for key passes are a lot better than most other midfielders in the Premier League. His goals and assists were good this year in terms of the numbers. And so he can definitely occupy this sort of space, and as we said, he loves to come out wide. He loves to run the channels. His crossing's very good. Obviously, with Tell coming inside, he's going to have a lot more space down this side. You dodgy with him as well, and so listen, I think it kind of depends on a lot of things. It depends on the connections he builds with players. That maybe that him and Udogie will just work perfectly well together. You know, maybe that will just be a connection that we don't see now, but when they start playing together, it just clicks. And so maybe he's going to play in that 6-8 role where he can run the channels and use that connection, and maybe him and Tell will link up well, or maybe as a 10, him and Solanke just click. I mean, they get on, they know each other, they're mates at England and all this. I'm sure they played together in youth England games or whatever. So yeah, you know, I guess it ultimately, as I say, it depends on a lot of things at Tottenham. Still, there's still, it's really tough to sort of decide, because as I say, we haven't bought in a 6 yet, so maybe he wants to play Archie Gray. Maybe he thinks that Gibbs-White is going to be the 6. Maybe they are going to still buy a 6. It's hard to sort of suggest what's going to happen without, knowing yet. And I know that's kind of the point of this, is to give the opinion, but that's kind of, it's a difficult one.
Absolutely. Interesting food for thought, Frank. Interesting food for thought. Who are we bringing in? What's going to happen at Tottenham? Who's going to be in the starting 11? Who's going to be on that bench come August the 14th against PSG in the Super Cup? But we could be talking about tactics all day. But guys, let us know what your thoughts on that 11 there, and what you would change. Would there be a different 6 instead of a Bergvall? Or then does Bentancur go? Would Bentancur, an experienced player, arguably in his prime, want to be sitting on a bench as well? There's another question, food for thought. But it's nice to have choice. It's nice to have squad depth. And it's nice to have options. But, guys, hope you enjoyed that hour of absolute madness. What have we talked about today? We talked about Morgan Gibbs-White. We talked about Adam Wharton. We've talked about Yves Bissouma and how there's no concrete news that he's leaving yet. We've talked about tactics and how certain players fit into certain systems in Thomas Frank. 250 of you have watched the whole thing, guys. I've got to say thank you so much for the support again. Really do, from the bottom of my heart, mean it. Thank you so much. Keep hitting the like button. Please smash the like button on your way out. Smash the subscribe if you're new to the channel and you enjoyed the stream today. Smash the noti bells, little ring, so you never miss the live stream. Every time you turn on the noti bell, you only need to do it once. You get an alert when we go live. So we'll be live again tomorrow, or we'll have another video out. Appreciate all the support. Keep whacking your comments in. And guys, thanks, Frank. great work, mate. Great tactics, great analysis. Thanks again.
It's all right, mate. I enjoy being back. I enjoy doing that. So I like to hope that at least one person takes something from it and thinks it's interesting.
It's absolutely, mate. Brilliant stuff. Guys, as always, thank you so much. Like, subscribe, comment, and notey bells on. Give us a little ring in the comments if you turn the notey bell on. And as always, remember, we'll be back tomorrow. But come on, you Spurs! Come on.